Nice to be back here in this room. Hi, everybody. I'm Candice Bergen, Member of Parliament for Portage-Lisgar. We are very concerned today. The Liberals, together with the help of their friends in the NDP, are going to be ramming through a motion that will change our Parliament and make it a hybrid Parliament, which we completely supported during the pandemic. But we believe that at this point in time, Canadians are expecting their parliamentarians to get back to work. Individuals put their names on a ballot. They got elected knowing that we were nearing the end of a pandemic and that their work would include coming to Ottawa and being here to do their job. Conservatives are ready to be here. We want to be here in person. The other concern we have, and we've seen the Liberals do this over the last year and a half, is they avoid accountability and they avoid scrutiny with hybrid parliament. In fact, there have been many, many days, and I'm sure some of you will have seen this, where there would have been maybe one Liberal in the House of Commons, sometimes no Liberals in the House of Commons. And certainly during question period, we saw ministers sitting in their offices avoiding the scrutiny and the pressure that comes from actually sitting in Parliament with 338 of your peers asking questions and demanding answers. So Conservatives are very concerned. We're disappointed that the NDP are joining the Liberals to force hybrid Parliament through, and Conservatives will be doing everything that we can to oppose this. I'll let my colleague, Mr. Deltel, make some comments, and then we're happy to take your questions.
Merci beaucoup, Mme Bergman. Bonjour, Mesdames, Messieurs. Mon nom est Gérard Deltel, député de Louis-Saint-Laurent et leader parlementaire de l'opposition officielle à la Chambre des communes. Alors, bientôt, il y aura un débat en Chambre concernant le retour du Parlement hybride à la Chambre des communes, et nous ne sommes pas d'accord avec cette approche-là. Nous l'avons dit à plusieurs reprises, au moment où l'on se parle, les règles permettent la tenue d'un Parlement où tous les membres sont à la Chambre. Nous l'avons d'ailleurs très bien démontré au cours des 2 derniers jours, alors que nous avons tenu des assemblées, des débats, des rencontres, des discours qui sont faits ici à la Chambre, où la Chambre était remplie. Et donc, ça, on est capable de fonctionner avec une Chambre qui est opérationnelle, avec les députés à la Chambre des communes. Nous nous souvenons également qu'au cours du début de la pandémie, il était tout à fait normal d'avoir des mesures exceptionnelles. Mais on a vu aussi au cours des derniers mois, particulièrement l'hiver et plus particulièrement au printemps dernier, des libéraux qui voulaient faire la leçon à tout le monde en disant que nous, on est quelques-uns à peine à être à la Chambre des communes parce qu'on veut faire attention, on ne veut pas propager quoi que ce soit, puis il faut faire attention quand on rentre dans les édifices publics et tout ça, alors que plusieurs d'entre eux, particulièrement des ministres, étaient à leur bureau à quelques centaines de pieds du Parlement canadien. Donc, ça suffit. Nous sommes prêts à siéger dans une Chambre pleine et entière. Les députés ont des questions à poser, les ministres ont des réponses à donner. Nous avons un travail à faire, nous avons des débats à avoir cours qui doivent avoir cours à la Chambre des communes, comme ça a toujours été le cas, sauf en situation de pandémie, comme nous l'avons vu. Donc, on constate que l'alliance du Parti libéral et du NPD fait en sorte qu'il est probable qu'en effet, ça soit comme ça, mais il est question pour nous, de façon très forte et très tenue, de s'opposer à cette approche libérale.
Monsieur Deltel, il y a un peu plus tôt le chef du Bloc québécois qui disait craindre un peu de côtoyer des députés conservateurs qui ont des exemptions médicales. Qu'est-ce que vous lui répondez à M. Blanchet? Puis il y en a combien vous êtes leader parlementaire, pouvez-vous nous dire, il y en a combien qui ont des exemptions médicales? Alors,
comme vous le savez, c'est une question de santé personnelle des gens et nous suivons toujours les règles. Toutes les règles qui ont été établies, nous les suivons rigoureusement et je sais très bien de quoi je parle puisqu'encore demain, je dois passer un test rapide à la suite du fait qu'un de mes collègues a eu la COVID. Donc, nous suivons les règles sont établies, les règles ont été établies depuis longtemps, soit dit en passant. Et moi, j'ai été très déçu de voir particulièrement M. Holland attaquer directement l'autorité morale et l'autorité aussi efficace du sergent d'armes. Souvenons-nous qu'il a mis en doute le fait que peut-être que des députés auraient obtenu des exemptions qui étaient un petit peu plus faciles que d'autres. Ce n'est pas le cas du tout. Ce sont le personnel de la Chambre de communes qui consulte les experts et nous avons pleine confiance aux mesures qui existent. Nous les suivons rigoureusement et c'est la Chambre des communes qui assure la sécurité de tout le monde. Et je peux vous dire que nous avons pleine confiance au système.
Mais sans donner de nom, monsieur, juste avoir un suivi, sans donner de nom, monsieur Deltel, pouvez-vous nous dire combien de gens, exemption médicale.
Alors, comme
pas non?
je vous l'ai dit, pour nous, c'est une question personnelle et les gens qui ont eu affaire avec ça ont fait affaire avec la Chambre des communes. Le nombre précis, c'est la Chambre des communes qui le sait. Moi, personnellement, je ne le sais pas parce que c'est une question personnelle et l'autorité suprême en ce domaine, c'est pas le Parti conservateur, c'est pas des médecins conservateurs, c'est la Chambre des communes qui base toujours ses observations et ses décisions sur les experts médicaux qu'ils consultent.
You have a wise option to have, given that we're still in a pandemic.
Canadians across the country are heading back to work. Most of them, at least in my riding, don't have the option for hybrid, and there are ways that we can be here. We've just shown it over the last number of days that we can be here following health guidelines, being together, but wearing masks, doing everything that we can to ensure that we're safe. I don't believe the Liberals are doing this because they're afraid of COVID. They're afraid of accountability. They're afraid of conservative questions. So let's call this for what it is. This is the Liberals using COVID as an excuse to not show up to work.
You have an MP right now who's been diagnosed with COVID, who has to isolate, who won't be able to participate in a non-hybrid parliament. Isn't that reason enough to keep these rules in place? Because other people may have to isolate because of exposures or COVID diagnosis.
Yeah, we've had individuals from all parties diagnosed with COVID and had to have to deal with it. Canadians don't have the option. Many Canadians don't have that option. And as members of Parliament, we have a job to do. I mean, we've always believed, Conservatives have believed, that MPs are essential, that we are essential whether it's fighting legislation or helping get legislation passed. So members of Parliament have things that they can do, whether it's stay home for a period of time, come back. We've had other members of Parliament deal with very serious illnesses that are not COVID-related, and they've had to adjust. So this has worked for the last 150 years, and we think MPs who put their name on the ballot are collecting their paycheck should come to Ottawa and should do their job.
But your caucus meetings, some of your own caucus meetings have provided an online link and a way for Conservatives to participate. So isn't it a bit hypocritical to stand here and say we need a hybrid parliament, but some of your own caucus meetings?
We had caucus today, it wasn't hybrid. So
There has been hybrid.
we had caucus today, and we've had caucuses previously, but we had caucus today, it wasn't hybrid. Conservative MPs are here, ready to get to work. We want to get to work, and we are absolutely happy to tell you we will not be having hybrid caucuses. We want to be in Ottawa doing our job.
And you had rapid tests at your caucus meeting today. What's the story behind that? How are you using this?
Conservatives have been asking for rapid tests for the last year and a half. We believe Canadians should have access to rapid tests. So our caucus chair did make some rapid tests available, and they are there if caucus members wanted to use them. Really, if anybody needs to, or wants to have a rapid test, I'm sure they'd be accessible to anybody on the Hill who would like a rapid test. They could talk to our chair.
Are they mandatory for your MPs who are attending caucus?
No.
Do you want them to be?
No.
Is there any point of consensus with the Liberals on this? Is there anything to talk to the Liberals about on this issue? Is there anything to negotiate?
I would ask the House Leader to speak to that. My understanding is they are not negotiating on anything, but I'll ask the House Leader to speak to that.
Well, obviously, we have conversation, and conversations are confidential, but at the end of the day, the result of that is that the Liberal will table a motion with the help of their friend of the NDP to have an hybrid parliament, and as far as we are concerned, we would like to have a full sitting house instead of a hybrid one. So yes, we can have discussion, but at the end of the day, the truth is that we are on the side to have everybody in the house, as we had in the last 2 days, without any difficulties. So this is where we stand, and we are asking the government to do the same. Obviously, we will say exactly the wording, but I think you can put your house on jeopardy on that, that's for sure. They will table a motion to have hybrid parliament. We do not agree with that, and they will get the help for their friends of the NDP.
Bon, M. Deltel, c'est possible d'avoir votre réaction juste rapidement au sujet de la loi 21 qui est présentée par des cours financés par l'Ontario comme étant un exemple d'islamophobie, un exemple évident d'islamophobie.
Écoutez, nous, comme vous le savez très bien, la loi 21, c'est une loi provinciale qui appartient au débat provincial. Nous avons déjà exprimé, notre chef a déjà exprimé lui-même ses réserves par rapport à cette loi-là. Par contre, ce qu'on comprend aussi, c'est que ça concerne le gouvernement de l'Ontario. Les provinces sont autonomes face à leurs choix et à leurs décisions. Mais moi, comme Québécois, c'est sûr que j'aime pas vraiment entendre ça parce qu'à mon point de vue, ce n'est pas la réalité des faits, bien loin de là. Mais c'est un débat qui appartient à la scène provinciale. Mais comme Québécois, c'est pas exactement ce que j'apprécie.
Hybrid parliament, Prime Minister, hybrid parliament. Why do you need one? Because a Conservative MP tested positive, he should be able to contribute when anyone tests positive. It's a way of making sure that parliamentarians can continue to speak for their citizens.
Quand est-ce que vous allez rencontrer les premiers ministres qui passent par la santé?
Oui, alors M. Duclos, l'industrie touristique à Québec réclame aujourd'hui la fin des tests PCR pour les gens qui arrivent, les visiteurs, les touristes étrangers. Vous répondez quoi à l'industrie? Est-ce que c'est quelque chose qui risque de se matérialiser?
Bien, je comprends très bien leur préoccupation, puis je les comprends particulièrement parce que moi, je suis député de la circonscription de Québec, qui est un des hauts lieux du tourisme, de la restauration et de l'hébergement au pays. Ceci étant dit, on est encore en pandémie et la pandémie est beaucoup plus grave en dehors du Canada et du Québec qu'on la trouve ici au pays. Alors, juste un exemple, aux États-Unis, en proportion de la population, c'est 4 fois plus grave. Au Royaume-Uni, 10 fois plus grave. En Belgique, 20 fois plus grave. Donc, il faut continuer malheureusement à être encore prudent et vigilant. Et comme on l'a toujours fait, on va continuer d'évoluer en fonction de l'évolution de la situation.
Avez-vous une idée à quel moment ça pourrait être révisé?
Les choses pourraient aller plus rapidement, les choses pourraient aller plus lentement. Évidemment, on est conseillé par des experts en santé publique qui regardent tous les risques, y compris et peut-être même surtout dans ce cas-ci, les risques associés à l'arrivée de voyageurs étrangers de régions où la pandémie est beaucoup plus grave que celle qu'on a au pays.
Merci, M. Duclos.
Merci.
Merci.
The work.
It's awful.
But what about the argument that some people may have kids, have to work from home?
I have kids.
And
I don't know
it
about you,
wouldn't
but do
help?
you got to go to work?
Yes,
Like,
I do,
what
I
were
do.
we elected for? To go to work. It's ridiculous. And you call an election, and you can go out and do all of these things, and you want to say it's a safety issue? It's bananas.
And didn't Jack Layton in 2011, the debate, say to Michael Ignatieff, people pay you to show up to work when he had a lousy attendance record? I think the NDP should live up to Jack Layton's example.
Thank you. What are your thoughts on the hybrid parliament?
I think the hybrid parliament is something I'm open to considering. What concerns me right now is we have Conservatives that we don't know if they're vaccinated or not. I mean, how do you get all these exemptions? They seem to think they're above the law of the land. I mean, case law is coming down on the need to have safe workplaces. And these bozos seem to think it doesn't apply to them. So I don't want to be sitting with guys if I don't know if they're vaccinated. I got family back home. I got people that I got to travel with. It's idiotic.
And in terms of First Nations child care, the negotiation's still ongoing. What do you make of the situation?
We are watching this situation really closely. I'm pleased the government brought in Murray Sinclair. He's nobody's fool. He's not going to take, just the dribble-drabble that comes out of the Department of Indian Affairs. So I'm hoping that Murray can bring people together. But this government has to live up to their commitments. They have to pay the compensation they owe. End of story. So let's get this thing done.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It's definitely concerning. One of the things I've been hearing is around the Cabot Trail around Indigenous, a lot of flooding, some bridges that have been washed away. I've been talking with Minister Bill Blair about that. We are aware, and we're going to be hopefully we're going to be updated by my staff later on this afternoon. Of course, we're on House duty talking about the floods in BC, and so this is all part of climate change, what we're dealing with, and we need to find ways to not only address climate change but mitigate the disasters and floods that are coming more frequently nowadays.
So should East Coasters expect some support from the feds?
Well, I don't want to be premature in terms of what's been asked for by the province. I know our Premier has been in town for the past few days, and so I'll leave that to the discussions between the Premier and the Minister of Emergency Preparedness for right now.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Sir, how do you guys feel about hybrid parliament?
Sorry?
How do you feel about hybrid parliament, the idea of having it?
I think it's absolutely necessary. If you want to respect the privilege of parliamentarians, what happens if one is sick? What happens if an MP cannot come here? He cannot speak, he cannot vote. So hybrid offers that option.
The Conservatives say it's ridiculous.
Well, I think it's ridiculous to say that it's ridiculous. Thank you.
Thank you. How do you feel to be here in person? What do you think about going back to hybrid?
I love being in person, but I think it's great to have the flexibility of hybrid, especially for those of us who are in ridings far away from Ottawa. It's good to have that flexibility if we need it, but I'm right now I'm in person. It's
and your thoughts
so
on
good.
the flooding out east?
Been dealing with the Premier's office with it. Been dealing with Minister Mendicino's office. It's significant. These are really small rural communities. And I've seen the damage that flooding and hurricanes have done in these communities. I mean, these are singular roads, very small roads that lead in, but they are the lifeline to these communities. So it's significant. Yeah. All right, guys.
Have a good one. How do you feel to be here in person?
Yeah, good. It feels good, but I mean, I think we just want to make sure that we're all taking the appropriate measures, right?
So you'd be willing to go back to a hybrid parliament?
Well, I think we need to lead by example, right? It's really important. We're members of parliament from all across the country. There are people who are immunocompromised or who have family members that are immunocompromised, and I think we want to make sure that everybody has the opportunity to participate. So, yeah.
Minister Miller, support for First Nations in BC that are at risk of flooding. What are you looking at and what are you hoping to help with?
Yeah, well, clearly, based on our experience with the wildfires, we know that the response, particularly sensitive to Indigenous peoples, has not been what it should. This is a lesson that we learned painfully through the wildfire season. It's a system that we've engaged and to work on with the government of BC and First Nations to reform, obviously not quickly enough to remedy the tragedy that's going on, and a good chunk of the people that are displaced are Indigenous, particularly the folks in Lytton. So my heart does go out to them. Minister Haidu, who is leading the emergency response, has provided substantial funds to work directly with communities. I think what we've heard loud and clear, particularly from Regional Chief TG, is the importance to unlock funds quicker, and that's something that is important. So we're moving together with the government of BC and cognizant of the fact that this is a huge catastrophe, and it's something that we'll be working with Indigenous people still.
Sorry.
Yep, sure.
Child welfare negotiations. How are those going?
Yeah, and it's hard to, as much as people are eager to hear about it, I think it's hard to speak publicly out of respect for the parties and the confidentiality agreements that we have signed. I have been in contact with Murray Sinclair, who is ably leading these discussions. They are difficult ones, but without prejudging the outcome, I think there has been some progress, but I hesitate to speak publicly on it because things can move quite quickly, and it's conversations and discussions and negotiations that will have to remain confidentiality until such time as there's an important breakthrough or something to settle with. But it'll be based on the consensus of the parties to speak publicly about it, and that space we do have to respect. But the overall goal, as we've stated from the beginning, is to ensure that children who have suffered prejudice from the broken child welfare system do get just, fair, and equitable compensation, as well as the longer-term piece, which is to make sure this doesn't happen again and we don't reproduce the model. This is, and I'll say it again, this is something that will cost billions, but it's very important for who we are as a country. Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good day. How do you feel to be here in person?
It's good, but as an NCR caucus member, I was always here anyway, so it's
what are your thoughts about a hybrid parliament possibly going back?
Hybrid, yeah, it's a must. I mean, if we don't want to stop the work of Parliament, so we have to prepare for Plan B, and I think that option has to be available for the time being. Great.
I missed you at the Legion the other week. How was the first day back? Or first QP, I should say.
Well, the Prime Minister took all the questions, so it was fine.
How was he invited? Cordial, or how did it compare to others?
I would say that it was reasonably cordial in most respects. I think there's some still personal stuff that I would prefer not to see in the House of Commons. I think we all should strive to do better in terms of tone.
I wanted to ask you about the line in the throne speech that talks about working with provinces to restrict handguns. I know C21 laid out a way to restrict handguns for municipalities. I'm wondering if you're thinking about a broader interpretation of that approach in this Parliament.
I think all options are on the table. We've seen too many innocent lives lost, and certainly that is true in my hometown in Toronto and in many other parts of the country. What you saw yesterday in the throne speech was a concrete commitment to continue to put into place programs around buybacks, but also to work very closely with provinces and other levels of government to ensure that we take additional strong action when it comes to getting illegal guns out of our communities, particularly handguns. So,
are you planning to reintroduce D21 or something like it?
we're actively looking at all options on the table, and we want to move forward with them. We've continue to see, as I said, the tragic loss of life in communities across the country. I think this is a sentiment that is shared by all members in the chamber. And now we have to continue to do the work on the ground, and that means working closely with provincial governments. You've heard recently that the government of Quebec is quite interested in having a dialogue. My door is open. If the government of Quebec wants to work with the federal government to take additional strong action against getting guns out of our communities, we'll be there to do that.
Just to be clear, because there was this entire debate whether you do it at the municipal or provincial level. So at first you wanted to be at the municipal levels. The platform kind of hint to the provincial level, but where do we stand now? Is it a situation where it's all or nothing? So all municipalities in one province have to ban it, or there's no ban at all? How do you see this?
I think what we've shown is that okay? Is that good? Am I here? I think what you've seen from our government is a readiness to take any and all action when it comes to getting illegal guns out of our communities. And so, for example, we took the step of banning approximately 1,500 military-style weapons. We also expressed a willingness to work with other levels of government, both municipal and provincial, in order to take additional action when it comes to dealing with handguns, and that is something that I am prepared to do.
I'm sorry, you're not quite answering the question. Are we looking to an action at the provincial level, so a province would have to ban it, or we're still considering letting municipalities do it?
I think the answer to your question is both. If municipalities and provinces are ready to engage the federal government on looking at additional ways on how we can get illegal guns, including handguns, out of our communities, then my door and this government's door will remain open. What we've heard from the government of Quebec and Monsieur Legault is that there is a desire to look at ways to put in place a ban that would cover the entire province of Quebec. We're prepared to have that discussion. Now, what does that look like? What are the parameters of that law? What are the restrictions? How does it get implemented? Remains to be negotiated. But I will say that in the platform that you also saw a commitment to provide $1 billion to provincial governments so that there is concrete partnership in implementing these measures so that we can get the guns off of the street. And at the end of the day, that's what we need to do. Guns have been a scourge for far too long. The throne speech acknowledges that, and it also acknowledges that we need to continue to do work in cooperation with provincial governments.
Are you concerned like a municipal approach to this would be too patchwork, that Toronto could ban handguns and Mississauga would keep them as well?
Like I said, my door remains open to those municipal leaders who are also looking for additional tools to get guns off of the streets. I know that many mayors right across the country have expressed a desire to see additional measures taken. So this is really an invitation to various levels of government who are saying we need additional tools to embark on that conversation so that we can get illegal guns off the streets. Merci
How
beaucoup,
quickly
tout le
are you
monde.
going to move on this?
As quickly as possible.